We're gonna demolish it or something.
Good evening, everyone. Today is Tuesday, March 17th, 2026. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Welcome to everybody to attending the village board meeting of Somerset, Wisconsin. We're gonna call the meeting to order. We're gonna have roll call. Chris Dubak.
Here.
Caleb Garn.
Here.
Brandon Crone. Here. Chris Marino.
Here.
Jessica Fleur.
Here.
Janice Stewart.
Here.
And Donnie Kearns here. Let's have the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda.
Caleb Garn make a motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
I'll second that.
There's been a motion made and seconded to approve the agenda as presented. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed nay. Motion carried. Next item would be public comment on agenda items, 2 minutes per person, 14 minutes per topic. Anybody that comes up, please come to the podium and address with your name and address, please.
David Wallner, 490 Forest Drive, Somerset. I'm addressing the board tonight as a village resident, not as a planning commission member. Larry Forest Park is not only used by our community every day, it is also shared with our youth boys and girls and high school programs. As a resident of the village, I can say we really enjoy seeing all the activity that goes on in the park throughout the day. But parks are supposed to be an inviting space to our community and visitors. Clean, safe, and orderly. With symmetry and balance along with clear lines of sight for viewing and safety. From my perspective, the additional shed, which is in question with us, if necessary, should be placed behind the batting cages alongside the sheds currently located there for balance. Keep the ball field fence lines open and clear. And with the new memorial bench and pickleball courts, a shed in their view along the fence line at that location is out of place. I would appreciate if we could take a step back to review and evaluate the current placement of amenities in our park to keep it balanced, symmetrical, and aesthetically pleasing. This is the premier park in Somerset. So I think we should keep it as open as possible and not bow down to somebody's convenience. They still have the use of the shed if it's necessary. It does not need to be along a fence line between the walking paths. So I have a personal individual in my wife, who has commented to me that as she is walking the ballpark and walking the track out there, she likes doing that. Keeps her look at my place and it gives her safety. There are times when there are senior looking guys, or older males that dip into the ball dugouts, sit down, they take a break, whatever. She doesn't know, but it makes her feel uncomfortable when she knows they're sitting in there walking around. So as we don't have a problem in our community right now, but who knows what the future holds and what could be out there. So I think for individuals that are out doing exercise on the track, you have to take that into consideration. Alongside, I don't know why they need a fence. There's 4 sheds down there right now. How are they used? Who knows? But I can guarantee a shed that size off the pickleball courts there and where the new memorial bench is sitting, it ruins view, the aesthetic views. It's not a farm, it's not a personal residence, it's our premier park. So we should keep it that, and we should look at the things that are down there and update them. There needs to be some upkeep on some of the stuff they've done. I don't know who moved the benches, the bleachers around and moved the announcer booths around a little bit. But it already has a little bit of a running look. And again, saying our premier park, let's keep it premier. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, I can't stay for the meeting. I have another meeting. I do have to leave, but if anybody wants to comment me, all you board members saw my email. You have my email. Please respond to me and I'll respond back.
Thanks, Dave.
Again, thank you.
Thank you.
Bruce Birch, 440 Sunrise Drive, Somerset, Wisconsin. Dave is my neighbor up on the hill. I also agree with everything Dave has said on this issue about the shed being moved to the third base line near the ball field. What he didn't mention was a lot of people sit there to watch the game. I've had people park in my yard, just seniors to park in my yard just so they're closer to so they could walk to the game. There's not a lot of room in the bleachers for them. I don't know if anybody's been to some of the games, but it gets kind of full there, so. And I just don't want to look at that shed out there. I'd rather watch them play ball at that shed. What's that?
Feedback, that's all.
I guess that's all I have to say. Oh, and I was wondering, do we know what's in that shed?
The question,
The shed that they want to move along the third baseline there.
What's in
It
it?
really is.
What is in
my
it?
You want to
understanding,
do a Q&A or is this public comment?
my understanding, just to answer the question on that would be, that it is supposed to be, equipment for the softball, or for the baseball, for the school.
For the varsity team, but do we know what equipment that would be?
I don't know.
Okay. Cause I guess. Does it have to be something that big? Could we get something smaller built and just add it onto the dugout a little bit, maybe? I would look at other options instead of moving it. I gotta go have corned beef and cabbage myself.
There you go.
Thanks, Bruce.
I'd like to say, but I
Makes
can't.
him brief.
What?
Deb Fuller, 470 Forest Drive, Somerset.
It's a meeting.
I did send a letter to everybody. Hopefully you all got to read it, so I'm really not gonna say much because I said what I felt in that letter, that I also question the need for another shed in the park when I look at how many there already for baseball equipment. But I did say in the letter, if it's deemed necessary, I definitely think it needs to be somewhere on the outside and keep the interior clean. And I also walk that path. And I do appreciate having something big there, so, kind of what everybody else said, but. So I would like to take a step back and figure out if we really need it, where's the best place for it to go.
Thanks, Deb.
Thank you.
Kathy Ness, 453 Charles Lane in Somerset. I am not going to talk about the shed. I am just here to let you all know, give you a quick update on the annual community cleanup day that's coming up this year. It's going to be April 25th, which is a Saturday. This will be the champion's 4th year doing it, and the ditch and road cleanup has been going on even longer than that, where we use the interactive map so people can adopt roads. So it'll start on April 25th, even though that one day is the actual cleanup day. Cleanup and road adoption will go through May 1st. So a few updates this year. We're the past couple of years, we've staged in the empty lot on the corner here that's for sale. In an effort to kind of move things down and create more of a hub in a Village Park. We're gonna stage in Village Park this year. 8:30, people will be coming in and signing up, adopting roads as they come in, if they haven't done it previously, being assigned parks and other areas, so we can kind of track who's doing what. It will go until noon. We'll have 2 dumpsters there. If you remember last year, we had the very coveted Oscar the Grouch trophy. There was competition between the village and the township, and the winner got the trophy. So the township board has that trophy now. So here's your opportunity to support the community and getting it back. It's pretty
Yeah, win it back.
sweet little trophy.
Coming for you guys.
Afterwards, at the end, we're going to be having a community lunch. River's Edge, Steve and Ally Kaufman are gonna be providing that. It's a great setting for it because the picnic table's already there, so we don't have to haul anything in. And really, all we really need from the village is the support, talking it up, getting people there. If we had village board members, down greeting people, that would be awesome. I believe we're gonna do a quick inventory. I believe we have enough trash bags, and that's historically how the village has supported us, is providing us with trash bags. But we are talking about thousands of pounds of garbage that we collected between the village and the township last year. And a lot of really, really big items. And Olson Sanitation is helping, they're providing the dumpsters, they're disposing of it all. And then those things that go into landfills, we're gonna work with them to get those things picked up as well. So hope you can all make it, and we just hope that you'll support our day. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Kathy.
Anyone else wish for public comment? Anyone online? Hearing none, public comment is closed. Next item on the agenda, the consent agenda.
Caleb Garn make a motion to pass the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to pass, approve the consent agenda and as presented. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, nay. Just so you know, for everybody that's here, consent agenda reference to the public safety, temporary beer, application for Peace Soup Days, the fire rescue report, the library report, and the minutes from last month's meeting. New business. First item on the agenda is village water and sewer bills. What's the pleasure?
Can't make all the motion.
Everything seems to be in order here. I would like to make a motion to approve the water bill or the village water and sewer bills as presented.
I'll second.
Motion made seconded to approve the water bill, village water and sewer bills as presented. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
All right.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried. Discussion possible approval update from MSA. I don't think there's anything that we need to approve on there unless somebody.
Chuck is on the call.
Pardon?
Chuck's there, you can give us an update. Chuck is on if you wanna hear.
Yeah, well, if Chuck wants to go through it, he's welcome to, but as far as approval, I don't know if there's, you know, no. Chuck?
No, nothing to approve. Well, good evening, Mr. President and the board. A couple items. There's not a lot going on, but there's a few items I should touch upon. The proposed land use concept for TID 7, the Newman Farms property, was revised to better accommodate industrial, residential, recreational, and stormwater needs. For the Somerset Trail project, there is a pre-construction meeting scheduled for March 25th. The other thing I would like to point out is we were planning to be on site for Pinevale to do some digging into the pond to see what the native soils are looking like and to get that, to look at the material characteristics to see if we can get that to drain properly or what the next steps to correct that situation but we had to cancel that due to rain, and then we had some snow. So that work is still going to go on. We'll still do that work to resolve the issue. It's just been delayed until things dry up a little bit and thaw out.
Chuck, I had one question on an update. We were supposed to have a public hearing on the TID concept for the Newman Farms for the playground, all that. I know that got postponed a little bit. Do we have any visibility on when that will be occurring or when that will be scheduling? I haven't seen anything come through on that.
We're not scheduling it, so I guess I'd have to defer to others on that, Brandon.
Yeah, it was gonna happen the last week in February is when we,
Yep.
I think we were talking about.
Yep, and Bob reached out and said it was gonna be postponed. I just hadn't heard any follow-up on that, so. If we had any updates here, that would be good, but if not, just follow up with me, Bob or Chuck, when you get a chance. When you have more visibility. Thank you.
Yep.
One quick question for you as well. River Hills, we have any update on that action? With the drainage issue back on the back side there with those landowners?
I believe Bob has been in touch with some of those homeowners. Maybe he could pipe in on that.
We have one homeowner, the main one that's gonna have the most disruption in their yard. They do not want that work to be done anymore, so looking at a few options, but we need the cooperation from that property owner, and they are at this point saying no. So, there's some minor things we can do down the way, but, we just don't know on determining how well that's gonna work out.
Is the rest of the street aware of that, Bob?
Yeah, no, they're not. So they were gonna get back to me just on a definite, they wanted to talk, between the husband and wife, but I did reach out to him and he goes, I don't think we want that work done anymore. And I said, okay, but he saw, let you know. So when I get back, that'll be one of the first things I do, and then I'll notify everybody on what that decision's gonna be.
That
And
would be great.
And then once the snow thaws out, I mean, that would be the best time to address that.
We had a pretty late one until just a couple days ago, so now we're gonna be back to seeing another significant melt, so. But thank you for that. Any other questions? Questions, comments, keep up the good work. Next item on the agenda. 6C ordinance 7-11. A 7-11 annex territory to the village of Somerset, Newman property. In your packet, you'll see an ordinance annexing territory to the village of Somerset, Wisconsin.
Like to make a motion to approve the ordinance A-711 annexing territory for the village of Somerset, Wisconsin.
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? Motion made and seconded.
You should do a roll call on this one.
Okay, just under discussion on this one, this has been a long time in the works. For that, there's been back and forth discussions on this. It's an opportunity for the village of Somerset to grow and expand towards the north. And I think it's a good thing for our village, and it gives us some opportunities to start looking at additional industry and jobs in this neighborhood as well. So any other comments?
Good growth.
Hearing none, I'll roll call vote. Chris Dubak.
Aye.
Caleb Garn.
Aye.
Brandon Crone.
Aye.
Chris Marino.
Aye.
Jessica Fleur.
Aye.
Janice Stewart.
Aye.
Donnie Kern. Aye. Motion carried unanimously. Next item on the agenda is resolution 2026-01, creating tax increment district number 7, approving its project plan and establishing its boundaries. In your packet, you'll see there's a under 6D resolution, and along with that, tax increment, and we're gonna take it right over to Josh.
Great. Well, thanks for having me tonight, this evening. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Though, given the weather, I thought it might have been Christmas there here tonight. So, kind of threw me for a loop this weekend. But anyway, tax increment district number 7. So this one's been on our plate for quite a while. It went on the front burner, then to the back burner. So now we're back on the front burner. So let's put it on to a boil. In terms of process, usually the way it goes is we'll first have the first meeting of the joint review board. So that's getting together all the underlying taxing jurisdictions. So we have representatives of the village, county, the school district, and technical college. And we had that meeting back in late November, early December, somewhere like that. We also had the plan commission meeting later that day, but that was all before we had the annexation to be completed. So put the pause on it at that time until now, and actually as of 90 seconds ago, now we can have the board meeting to go ahead and approve the district. So really nothing has changed except for the creation date between now and then. So I haven't had to do any revisions to the maps or the cash flows, but this is the first time I'm able to talk to you guys about it. So we can go ahead and get into it now. Chuck alluded to it just a minute ago, but I can go ahead and get started. So I think most folks have heard my spiel about tax financing at least one point in the last few years since I've been here, but I'll just go ahead and start fresh. Anyone who has any questions, feel free to stop or pause if I keep going around too quickly. But the whole reason we have tax increment financing is because we need to look for a new source of revenue to support economic development. For the most part, if you wanted to do something new to promote growth in town, you're really limited to your current resources of your existing budget or new borrowing that would fall on your current taxpayers. So the whole point of tax increment financing is to take the revenue that comes from new growth after it comes in to pay for the infrastructure or the incentives you need to make that growth happen in the first place. So on this first slide, this is just an open part of land. So this is a Google Street View image of tax increment district number 7. As you can see, there's nothing there right now. So in order to entice a developer to put in something here, right? Most developers would see having to install their own infrastructure as an additional cost to development. They'd much rather be able to build something that already has infrastructure, has had site improvements on it, so they can just build the vertical infrastructure. So the whole purpose of tax increment financing is to be able to put in the infrastructure that they need to grow on. After they do develop something, you have that revenue stream that can pay back those incentives. And that's really what we're trying to accomplish with this today. Okay. All right. So how does that work in terms of the finances, right? So think about that area that we just incorporated into the village, right? Right now, it is paying some, but not a lot of property taxes because of course there's no true value on it. So let's just say for easy round numbers, it's $1,000. That's what it is today with no improvements on it. So that's how it is before we create the district. Of that $1,000, that gets split up proportionally amongst the village, the joint review board members that I just mentioned a minute ago. The village, the county, the tech college, and the school district all get split out. The village gets probably 30 to 40% of that $1,000. Right. So that's the way it is right now, before we create the district. After we create the district, that $1,000 will still be being paid before anything gets constructed on it, and still get the same split. So all of those agencies that I just mentioned will still have the same amount of taxes coming in if nothing else happens. Where tax refinancing comes in is once something does happen and still starts to get built, everything above that $1,000 now goes exclusively towards the village. So
Towards that district.
Right, to pay for costs in that district, but to be controlled by the village.
Correct.
Right, so not the other taxing jurisdictions don't get anything above the 1,000. They still get their 1,000. So their budgets should still be based on that first 1,000, not the growth afterwards. So that's what's shown now in this purple column right here on the slide. So the blue is that 1,000, the purple is everything that grows on above that. So let's move forward in time. So the time we're going to get ready to close this district, and it's final year 2046, 20 years from now. At that point, after we close it, then all of this green is the full value of the taxing jurisdictions. All goes back to the taxing jurisdictions. So you've got a much wider base now after it's closed. So that $1,000 is now hopefully some large amount, much higher than that. And that's what gets split up by the taxing jurisdictions now. So in the short term, no one is made any worse off. And in the long term, everyone's made better off because we have a much larger pie that we're splitting for. But the key thing that the joint review board needs to think about, and the village board as well, is what we call the but-for test. And this is kind of an idea that without the financing or the land acquisition that we're going to do and how we're going to pay it back, that none of this would happen. And of course, that's absolutely true for this district, because if we weren't able to use the TID as a mechanism to acquire the property from the Newmans, of course, we'd never sold us the property, right? So without the TID and being able to pay that back, we wouldn't even have the land at all to be able to build any of this on. It would still belong to the town. So this is maybe the easiest but-for test that you could ever adopt. So, any questions on the TID cash flows and kind of how that works overall?
Fantastic job. I learned something new.
Okay, great. Good night, guys. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is TID 7. So how you know how TID works as a whole, we really want to get into specifics of this district. This one is very early on in terms of the concept and development. And I think Chuck just mentioned a few minutes ago, we're still working out exactly where we're going to put the streets and the roads and all that kind of thing. So the reason that we're doing this now is to make it eligible because we have a very motivated property owner who wants to sell his property, right? We're still waiting to see how residential development is gonna come. I think it's worth noting that this one is just north of your very successful TID 6. So we're kind of thinking this is maybe like Pinevale Phase 2. It's gone very well, and working with the developer there, they feel very bullish about being able to close out TID 6 and then move into this very quickly, just on the residential piece. But we are trying to think, as we always do in the creative district, how can we think holistically about all of the needs of economic development moving forward? So we also have areas slated for industrial and commercial growth as well. Bob has mentioned many of these potential developments from companies wanting to expand either in Somerset or being attracted from coming over from Minnesota that are talking to him a lot about these kind of opportunities going forward. So with the totality of the area here in now the farthest reaches north of Somerset, really thinking about trying to make all of those various activities. In addition to more recreational uses, because we didn't include that in TID 6 when we created it. So now being able to do an athletic complex, something like that somewhere in this district would certainly be on the village's wish list. Probably the most important legal finding that we have to do for this specific district, which is a mixed use district. So we have to find that at least 50% of the total area of real property in the district is suitable for residential, commercial, or industrial. So the only thing that would not fit in that category for us is the athletic department complex. But still, even if when you take that out, more than 50% of what you're seeing with these parcels will be residential, commercial, and or industrial. You need 2 out of those 3 categories to be mixed use. So on this one, it's very easy to demonstrate. Any questions? That's a very big picture version of a district, which I think at this point in the concept development here, that's really the best way to think of it. This one is, you know, if we have the most speculative districts on this end, and then on some other districts where we know exactly the kind of improvements going into it, because we've already very far along with the developer, I would put this one on the more speculative end, which we always knew was going to be the case because moving quickly to acquire the property and then have a funding mechanism to pay for it. The next thing I want to talk about are the anticipated infrastructure and projects that we're going to do and that we've included in the project plan. So when I think of a project plan, kind of the metaphor that I think of this is like a toolkit that we want to give to you. So imagine being, you know, a new homeowner and knowing that you're going to have to do some repairs at your house. And in that toolkit, you probably need you know, screwdriver, you know, a saw, hammer, nails, you know, power drill, all that kind of stuff, because I can use those for almost any project that I do at my house. But none of those are specialty tools, right? I don't have like a really cool radial arm saw or anything like that in that toolkit. I'll probably have to get that at some other time if I need it. So whenever we start a district creation, I always want to think of it as that big kind of catch-all toolkit that gives you the basics of what you're going to need to implement your district for the next 20 years. So we've got public infrastructure and a couple of different phases of that because we know we're going to need streets. We know we're going to need utility extensions to get up to that. But currently, we don't know exactly what they're going to cost. And I'm sure we'll be working with Chuck quite a bit in the next few years to be able to scope those out. So the things that we have in there that kind of fit that more generic catch-all brand of tools are the public infrastructure. Additionally, we've got the 3 phases of property acquisition to build this out, because I believe that Mr. Newman wanted to do this in various chunks over time. So that rather than doing a $6 million borrowing to take all of it at once, we're going to do $1.5 million very pretty soon. We're going to close on that tax increment district, the state trust fund loan, which you guys authorized at the end of last year. We still have 4 months to be able to borrow and draw that down from the state. So that's probably going to happen in the next few weeks. That's my guess. Then we've got some funding for the athletic department complex, and then future development incentives for development to be named in the future. So again, this is like giving you that toolkit that has those pieces in there, but does not specify exactly when you're going to implement them in the future. So the property acquisition phase 1 is going to happen soon. The rest of them are all going to be prospective, but I want to make sure you've got those tools so that you can use it and you don't have to amend the plan in the future to add those. It's likely that over the next 20 years, you'll have to do some kind of amendment because we don't have all the ideas here today. But that's for a later board to figure out. Any questions on that? I admit that everything is high level, but that's because we're still kind of in the concept phase of this. Right. So the next one, I really wanted to talk about the development assumptions and how we actually start generating revenue and what the forecast for that might look like. So the TID is going to capture construction beginning next year. So we're not even.
What page you on this?
Oh, it's not this one, right?
Development assumptions.
6?
Yep.
Just want to make sure
Yes.
we're up.
Did 6 or 7?
Right.
I don't know.
Alrighty, do it. That's why we hired him, you know.
Because I get the joke with teenagers.
That's right.
All right, so we're actually thinking that construction will likely begin next year, not even this year. So take time to acquire the property, figure out whatever is going to happen with development opportunities. I know Bob's working very hard, has got some hot leads for that. But imagine that will take time before it comes to fruition, right? We're gonna have to actually get the developers enticed, do the legal work to get a developers agreement. That's all gonna take time. But having a TID is the start of that process. So that would start next year, anticipation, and then continue for the next 20 years, coming in different chunks over time. Right? And that's what's shown here in this first column, shows value added. If next year is the first year we see new development, we won't see new revenue coming from that for 2 more years. Because construction happens the first year, then that gets assessed the next year, which turns into revenue and tax against that value in the 3rd year. Right, so there's always a bit of a lag between when construction starts and when you start getting revenue and when you can start paying the bills, right? So in that value add column, 11 million is projected with new, probably industrial and some residential development in 2027, and that will start turning into new revenue in 2029. And if you follow that column all the way down, we're projecting about 107 million over the next 20 years of this district, which is quite a bit of time in the future. And
Would
if you
you
sum
say
up,
that is a conservative estimate or?
we generally tend to go fairly conservative, but knowing like the size of the district and kind of what we've heard from the development market, I would not say it's very aggressive.
So it could be considerably more.
Could be more, could be less,
Depends on inflation.
right? So if you add up all the revenues that we get for each different year, we're projecting about 19.6 million in revenue between now and the year 2047. And it was just noted, revenue estimates are based on the pace of development and the village tax rate, and of course, inflation as well.
That was gonna be my question, Judge. Tax rate, you have in here 1456, that's total base tax rate, right?
Right.
So if taxes are increased, is that born into that figure, or is this frozen for 20 years?
For our projections, we usually freeze it because
Okay.
it's really hard to say.
But in theory, if the tax roll goes up by the county or whatever, does that, play into, and just stay in the TID?
Absolutely.
Okay,
So the way it works, I mean, there's 2 factors that make up the tax rate, right? One is the increase of taxes, and the other is the pace of growth outside of the district, right? The TID out value. So what's happened in Wisconsin over the last several years is that the tax rates have gone down because levies and taxes are actually capped by levy limits. So those can't go up almost more than inflation in net new construction. Meanwhile, the pace of inflation on property values has gone up a lot higher. So what that has meant is that in most districts and in most places, we've seen a steady decrease in the tax rate over time. So I don't know if I would say that it's going to go down too much more, but maybe it'll settle in the next few years.
I guess what I was saying is if there was if a referendum or something went through on the school board and the school did a referendum, that would increase the tax, the levy rate for that district.
It would increase the levy, but it's weighed against how much the value of the TID out went up during that year. So if the value stayed the same and the levy itself went up, then the tax rate would go up.
Okay,
But what happened, as happens in most places, is that even though with referendums, some minor tax increases, the equalized value has gone up more than that, so the rates have gone down.
okay, all right, that
So-
explained it.
In theory, you're right, but I think in practice, it's gone down.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so that's how we get to 19 million. The next page is admittedly hard to read, and the next time I present one of these, it will be on its own 8x14 page, because it's It's actually the most complicated, yet also the most difficult to read. In that vein, I'm gonna focus your attention on two separate pieces. One is projected revenues right here. The first column in from the left borrows directly from that last page. That's 19 million. The next column over shows property acquisition revenue. And that's an important piece here for this district specifically, because of course you're going to acquire the property from Mr. Newman, but you're not gonna hold it for yourself. The idea is here is to sell it to a developer. So hopefully that washes, but then the district itself and the village will be liable for any interest costs on the state trust fund loan as it goes forward. So for example, if we're going to borrow $1.5 million from the state trust fund loan, the interest cost is gonna be running on that. So if you sell it for $1 million, or for $1.5 million to a developer, they'll pay you that back, which equalizes the principal, but then you'll still have the interest to be due the next year. Okay, so that's the way that would work for your first project expense. Every other column in here in green, forget about the numbers for a minute. I'm just going to direct you. Just note that they're there. Each column there represents either property acquisition, inclusion of in construction of infrastructure, or the athletic complex, one of those project costs that I talked about a few slides ago, and potential development incentives. The most important columns out of this cash flow are these ones all the way over to the right-hand side. If you've got a magnifying glass, you can probably read it. But the first one, annual, is how much more in revenues you're taking in compared to your expenses in any given year. So for the most part, they're in the positives, except for these years where you're paying off a state trust fund loan and you've got the property acquisition revenue in the previous year. So for this district, the most important part to think about for any of these districts is the cumulative balance column, which is adding up all of the annual surpluses every year. That's the one that we really track. This is almost like the district's savings account. So in any given year, this is the way I run my house, but as long as some months and some years, I'm gonna have higher expenses than others. You know, if I had to buy a new car or put a new roof on my house or something like that, that month might be in the negative. But as long as I've got enough money in my savings account, or in this case, your cumulative balance, the district is solvent. And that's really what we're trying to do, to sync up your revenues and expenses so that you're never really in a deficit for too long. And most importantly, by the time you get to the end of the life of the TID, in 2047, you've got 120,000 still in the positive, right? So that really is a sign that you've been able to pay all of your costs with the revenue that was generated by the district, and you end in a positive. And with that last year, anything that's in the positive goes back to the other taxing jurisdictions based on how much they contribute to the overall apportioned levy of the village. Okay. So in that case, if things hold steady as they are today, the village would get, I don't know, 40% or something of that 120,000. I guess that would be like, what, $50,000, I guess. Okay. So this district is currently solvent based on everything that I've mentioned so far. So if the development comes in at the pace that it comes in, with the tax rate staying the same and the expenses stay the same, right? And the expenses staying the same implies project costs, interest rates, borrowing at that same time frame, all of that. And of course, that's not going to happen because 20 years is a long time to be planning out the future. You're going to hit many bumps in the road and twists and turns along the way, right? But I think with the assumptions that we do have a viable project plan. Okay? Probably the most important takeaway from this is that even though we've got these projects in a cash flow and a project plan, nothing is committing you today to implementing them on the schedule. They still have to go through the board, the same process that you always do to issue debt, take on new projects, agree to developers agreements, all of that. That will happen as they come. But the action today is just giving you the toolkit and you say, we like this toolkit, we're gonna accept that. Okay. Any questions on the cash flow?
Looks like it's flowing.
Great, there will be, like a mighty river, just like the mighty Apple River flows right through.
There we go, you're feeling it. Just vote, have it ready.
Okay, so as I mentioned, December 2nd, that was the first time we talked to, not you guys, but the Plan Commission and the Joint Review Board. Put the pause button pretty close to, it might have been in the days before we met the meeting last time, back in 2025. And now here we are, March 16th, 17th, 2026, for you guys to approve tonight. Next week, next Thursday, we have the joint review board to give their final approval on the TID 7 project plan. Since there have been no questions that have really risen to me over the last several weeks, I'm gonna do some more outreach. I think it was the tech college guy. Got some more questions, the last time we talked. I might send him an email, to make sure we're on the same page, but really nothing's changed materially since then. Those tend to be pretty quick meetings. I think we're gonna do it virtually for them to sign into. And if they do decline it for whatever reason, they have to give you, their reason why in writing. And I've never been there for one that's actually been.
You're saying the board declines it or?
The joint review board does.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if the joint review board declines it, it has to be in writing, not just the individuals that are on the board.
That's right.
Okay, gotcha.
I've never seen that happen, and hopefully it won't happen next week either, but I'll work some notes for you. Any other questions for me? My contact information is here on the back.
There's a really thick
This thing.
document in our binder. Is yours, the one you handed out today, a little bit of a summary of this really thick one?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So
That's the
everything that's in
actual-
there,
That's the actual project plan.
Yep.
right,
So this was the kind of, the layout of the TID.
right, that's a higher level overview. Every table and every map that I presented here is in
And then
that.
the big long one.
Right, right.
We're getting close, Josh, because your decks are getting lighter.
Not the one in your pamphlet though.
Hey, if you wanna see something heavy, I did bring you guys a copy of that preliminary official statement.
You did that every time, no.
Well, but here it is, the actual OS. This is from the borrowing that we did last month. So this one's like, what, 150 pages, so here you guys go, if you ever wanna read it. That is a summary of our work for that.
Thanks.
You asked it,
Is that like dropping the mic? Is that what
Yeah.
you're right here? There you go.
Right,
Based on-
anyway, definitely recommend taking a look at that. That is really, sorry, let's finish talking about this and then I'll shift topics around that. Any other questions about consent?
I have a real basic question,
Sure.
because I'm real new to this. You've got developers, they wanna build a housing development. So they're gonna do that, and that's gonna generate houses and taxes and all that. We got developers who wanna build an industrial something. They're gonna get taxes for that, there'll be jobs, everything. Who is building, buying, paying for these ball fields, these stuff? They're not generating revenue, correct?
Well, the ball fields, I mean, usually they get some nominal revenue from that. The way this gets paid for is through the property taxes that are generated by those developments. So what will happen in the future is the village will issue debt to pay for these projects, right? So if we did that this year, the first payments would be next year.
Right.
So new property taxes get generated by new houses or industrial growth to pay for that work.
And they will have to pay some amount in, so as part of when we do like developments and stuff like that, the
Okay, there'll
developer
be-
does have to pay some
Okay.
amount, like, so for. TID 6, they bought out of that portion. Now, it's by no means gonna be enough to pay for the complex that we
Right,
want
right.
or need.
Right.
But that is how some of the costs are offset.
That is true.
Yeah, and
So for the athletic complex, the amount that is actually included in TID is probably only a portion of the overall cost to develop an athletic complex.
Right.
And the reason for that is because something like an athletic complex is not going to be only using and only being benefited by the TID. Like if you did a street that connected from Somerset Now to that district for that development, you could reasonably say that the only reason we have that street is to serve that development. So therefore, that development itself should pay for 100% of that street,
That TID,
that district.
Right.
That's right.
it would be an expense on the TID, not on the
Exactly.
taxpayer.
That's right. But the distinction here for the athletic complex is that certainly if I'm living in tax increment district number 7, I live across the street from that athletic complex, my kids and I, we're probably gonna go to that a lot. But also everyone else in Somerset is gonna benefit from that too. And maybe other people who are from the region, maybe there's like a softball tournament or something there, and New Richmond folks and Hudson folks are all coming for that too. They're probably gonna be paying some fees into that. And I think you guys also have a parks impact fee as well, right?
Yep.
So all of those become the overall picture for financing some of those more regional and village-wide improvements. And that's a little bit different than infrastructure or development incentives to go for that. So the athletic complex and recreational amenities in general, there's actually one part in the back of the plan. This is an obscure part of tax and finance law But the Department of Revenue calls all of those additional funding sources non-project costs. So in this one, we're saying probably about 2 million of that, of the total project cost for that will come from the district, and everything else will be other village sources. So that might be, other general fund dollars, maybe you have to levy for it, maybe it's impact fees or other, park revenues that you get from other users of the park system.
It's page 32.
There you go.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I just wanted it to be fleshed out a little more, so yeah.
Anybody else have any other questions you got?
I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution 2026-01, creating tax increment district number 7, approving its project plan and establishing its boundaries.
Second.
Motion has been made, seconded to adopt resolution 2026-01. Any further discussion? We'll go on that. Any further discussion? Thank you very much for putting this together for us and working with us on this one. We've been a long time coming on it.
Yeah, great work.
Great work. Thank you.
So I did want to mention that OS there, if you just want to glance through it, that is the work that Ellers really puts together, that offering statement that goes out to investors. Just give it a quick glance, staff certainly has a very large piece of that, Andrea and Jessica spent a lot of work bringing some of that data together to put into it, so very appreciative. Feel free to take a look at that at your leisure.
Where Jessica?
Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote on this one. Duvak,
Aye.
trustee Garn,
Aye.
trustee Crone,
Aye.
trustee Marino,
Aye.
trustee Flirt,
Aye.
trustee Stewart,
I,
and President Dunn, aye. That is a unanimous consent.
Great, thanks, have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is discussion possible approval bid, approval of demolition of Main Street homes. We did get 4 bids brought in, but Bob unfortunately got held up because of the snowstorm and is out of state. Wasn't able to get back for that. I'd like to table that if we can until our meeting. We're scheduled for another board meeting on the 26th. And if we can address that at that time, if the board's pleasure.
So moved.
Only one question for, is that gonna cause any holdup or anything if we've gotta wait a month to accept that bid?
Well, it's 2 weeks.
The 2 weeks, that's what I said.
Yeah. Right down the road here, a couple of days, yeah. I don't think so. The bid release was set to start at the end of March anyways, 1st of April, so I don't think that's gonna hold anything up.
Perfect.
Bob, would you want to chime in on that possibly?
Yep, that's fine. I think that's reasonable. I have not even seen the bids yet, so I do appreciate you guys tabling that, so I could look everything over.
Yeah, my only one other comment is hopefully we have some local folks or some local contractors that we can utilize.
Mhm.
So it's like to use hometown folks when we can.
Sure. Motion made to table,
Second, I'll second the
motion seconded to table. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried. Next item is discussion possible approval, placement of shed at Larry Forest Park. I've asked to put this on. I received 4 emails and obviously a lot of public comment here tonight. So I put this on the agenda for discussion of the trustees. I know it was discussed at Public Works, and it was brought up at one time with the school, and I think there was a meeting that was held, but apparently there's been some concern of neighboring individuals there, so I don't know what your thoughts are about that, but.
So I just have a few things just because we met out the field and just some general comments here. I would like to, is there any way we could pull up Google Maps and pull the field up by chance while you're running this, just while I do my spiel, so that maybe we can have the comments from public to see where they'd like to see it. So
What do you want me to look at?
can you pull up Google Maps and then pull up the park?
Larry Forest.
Larry Forest Park. Perfect, and then we can go to that once I go through this, so, I just want to take a moment to address some of the concerns of the public. So this is, the congestions out at the fields is not a new issue. And that is why us as a board have been working to try and identify areas for new fields. And with the acquisition of this new land and all of that, hopefully soon we'll be approving 4 new fields out in TID 7. So that will greatly help reduce some of that congestion there. The other thing that I just want to point out is, you know, the school would like to have their own fields, and they put a referendum forward, and that referendum failed, unfortunately. So that puts the village in kind of a hard spot for us to work with the schools to make sure our children can play baseball and that they do have a field for baseball. I agree it's not an ideal situation, but I think we can all agree that kids need to be able to play baseball. While we were having some of our conversations about the placement of this, Neil and I brought up to Zach that there are some opportunities for improvement for the congestion. One suggestion is that when there are away games, that the teams do not park down there and shuttle from there. Zach did say that moving forward, they were going to be taking their kids from the school from now on. So for away games, they're not going to be congregating down at the field. That should be for both baseball games and softball games moving forward. Some of the challenges with placing the shed were brought up by our own village staff, and we were trying to accommodate them. So there have been times when they have tried to place sheds and other items that irrigation has been broken, and our employees had to fix that. So based on some of the feedback from our park staff, that was how we came up with the initial location. One other thing I would like to point out is we do recoup costs from the baseball teams and other organizations for use of the fields. Understand this is a public park and a public asset, but I just wanted to point that out. This shed came at no cost to the village. This was all furnished by the baseball team. This shed was a collaboration between the Legion and the high school students. So this was actually built by the high school kids, and the Legion funded part of this. So this was a collaboration outside the village. And that brings up my final point. At that meeting, and feel free to watch the last Public Works meeting, I addressed the process concerns that so many that we got from multiple emails, and just kind of said that, hey, we need to be involved in this process earlier than when it's just built and when it's done and when it's dropped. That message was heard loud and clear. And then the last thing I want to bring up is they used to put this stuff in the concession stand, but they lost use of that area in the concession stand. That is what was the catalyst for the need for the shed. Now, I would also like to point out that the Baseball Association is in the same as the village, where we don't have frivolous money just to be throwing around. So the need for the shed is not frivolous, it is actually needed. So based on all that, I am open to putting the shed wherever we want the shed or wherever it needs to be. So I will go over here to where it was proposed. I think it was over in this area. And it was proposed over there because the irrigation was out of the way there. And they could also put a bed down there. We didn't want it just laying right on the grass. We wanted to have some sort of solid base down there. We were talking about concrete, talking about class 5, but we settled on class 5 because then if they ever wanted to move the shed, then they could. So this is where we had discussed putting it. Like I said, I'm open to it being anywhere on the field. I'm not really, I don't like taking up park space either, but I understand the need for it. And I think as a village, we need to work together to figure out where this is gonna go. So,
Jessica, will you click on the layers button on the bottom of your screen?
very good.
Yeah.
So right now we have a shed in this area right over here.
Is that conform or conflict at all with any irrigation right where that's at? Where that shed is where you were pointing?
No, not right now.
I was just asking because
Yep.
that one just showed up there.
And that was something that Zach brought up, was kind of like, I'm not sure who I was supposed to talk to for it, so now we've laid the foundation down to say. You gotta come to Public Works, you have to have that conversation with us, have this with us before you build it. Because maybe we would have been able, even willing to kick in a little bit of money or something like that. But yeah, that kind of recalibrated that relationship, so. They're also open to moving it as well. They're not really, that was just the location we just kind of settled
Can you
upon.
point it out again now that we have
Yeah,
this?
so this is where this is where they were talking about, was right over here.
So a lot of people from the emails that I've seen were concerned about that being that close to the walking path and the safety of having that shed and be, on by that walking path.
Sure.
Is there any thoughts of?
Do you want it out by the batting cages?
I'm just saying, yeah, that would probably make the most sense. Does that conflict with irrigation over there?
I will confirm with Neil, but I would like
I
to
think
be able
what
to
I'm
give them
hearing
direction.
from the emails that I read, and that is that the concern was keeping it on close to that walking path is
Move
safety.
it, yeah. Move it anywhere as long as it doesn't mess with the irrigation, one, and two, it has to have a class 5 gravel base. That was all. So if we put it out here, are we good?
I have a question right here.
Yes,
That building that's on there right now, what's the base on it?
that's on the grass.
Just sitting on the grass, no,
It just showed up there. It was, I think the softball association or.
Yep,
youth
someone just
softball
put it there.
brought it in and it doesn't match the colors of the park or anything. It just showed up
Yep.
there. I give kudos to the school for at least trying to, match the colors and everything like that.
And they said they're gonna take care of it and do the upkeep and stuff like that. We'll do the weed whipping, but
my question then on this, why can't you pick that one up and move it a little bit to the left or the right, or north and south, or whatever you wanna call it there,
yeah,
and put the other one in there?
well, I guess,
Instead of see how it is the center?
yeah,
They certainly can.
Yeah.
We certainly can. It's just temporary there.
yeah, they can be moved, yeah. But for the sake of the conversation for this shed,
Deb,
so I can give
your
placement,
thoughts?
I would like to give them
The last
direction.
man standing left here.
Yeah,
That was kind of the consensus, is that everybody was thinking the
Okay.
best place would be for it right there.
Okay.
So it's not by the walking path, and it
Yep.
makes more sense because you had another shed show up there, so the two of them could somehow go next to each other and.
like I said, truly indifferent to where it
Yeah.
goes, so glad we could come to a
If that would,
where it goes.
if that would appease the neighbors, I mean, and it does.
My understanding, that is what everybody would like to see. Like I said, there's nobody else here left to speak to it, but I just know that general consensus was that by that walking path with the use of the public and ourselves, that we preferred to see it somewhere else, and that was one of the areas that was talked about.
All right,
So
Zach, if you're watching, somewhere in this area,
Well,
Okay.
would it make sense to pick up that one and do a gravel base jointly for the two sheds rather than having one on grass and the new one on the correct base?
so. I'm trying, so we don't spend any money right
Right.
now, and right now that's not spending any, and that, I don't know if that's softball or. Cause right now I'm dealing with the high school, is the coach who's put it in there, I don't know if
Should it
that's
be now
softball.
the
or-
village who has responsibility for that?
Yeah, right now they're,
Yeah.
they are maintaining it, but we
I think it's
can,
worthy, of a conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, if we can get them to.
What half the bill?
Work with us on it, and I mean, cause if you have the equipment out there already, you might be able to lift it up and just, put some gravel underneath it. It would definitely. Extend the life of it by putting some kind of a class 5 underneath it.
yeah, I agree, that's why we pushed for the base. Under the other
And
one.
if I may just interject too, I mean, I think the same thing, like, things can't just keep showing up in parks that people just decide it needs to be there, so somehow.
No, and Zach this was on the agenda, or he came and
Yeah.
talked about it under Public Works, under Parks Improvements. There were meetings between Neil and him and myself out there. Dave graciously came down as we were out there, she was watching. us.
But the shed was already in the parking lot.
It was, yes.
I mean, so the shed had already been moved there.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I gave him guff for that.
So I mean, so two were actually already moved there without anybody going to anybody saying, what more can we put in here?
But this one wasn't finally placed. Okay, fantastic. I'll get that's the direction I'll get.
Your point's very well taken, though.
Yep.
That things did, and when I was chairman on Public Works, that's when we kind of put that policy in place and
Yeah,
said.
Donnie, how the heck did that get out there? And
Well, I was past chairman on it.
Oh, right.
It's really
That was intermediate, soon as I left, it went in.
Yeah, that's what it was, yeah.
turned into a shitty situation.
Oh, man.
So,
Okay, so,
Oh, Jana, you were saying?
yeah, well, of the comments that we got, a number of them were the shed, the aesthetics, I don't wanna have to look at it. There were some significant issues about the whole parking thing. Does that need to be addressed? Maybe not now.
that's not on our agenda for this, but I would suggest that you take that to Public Works and put it on the agenda. for
Yeah,
that
so we
session.
can, because those were, and there were photographs regarding and driveway access and real problems for people. And I've been there trying to figure out where am I supposed to park and going down the dead end and turning around in people's driveways and all that kind
Yeah,
of
there's
stuff.
definitely some situations there that need to be brought up, but.
I copied public safety and the chief on some of my responses. So
Okay.
I would expect public safety to do something about that. We'll pay for the signs. So
Okay,
you just tell us where to put them up. Deal?
Yeah.
All right.
So,
Well, that was on that agenda. So yeah, back to the agenda item. I would like to make a motion to approve the placement of the shed near the current shed with a class 5 base. As long as it does not mess with in its location to not interfere with irrigation.
I'll second the motion.
motion made, seconded to locate the new shed for the baseball next to the other shed with class 5 base as to not disturb irrigation. Any further discussion?
Only other comment is I will follow up with the other part.
The other shed owner?
the renegade
Yep,
shed.
I'll figure out what's going on.
Road
Yeah,
shed.
yeah. I'll fix what the past administration's left for me.
You keep right on working that. No further discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried. Next item on the agenda, and good discussion too out there for everyone.
Yeah, no, that's how good government works, so I appreciate the feedback from everyone.
Village ordinance and assessment for structural fires consistent. This is discussion only for township of Somerset ordinance. The only reason I put this on the agenda for discussion only is I know that in our joint meeting that we had with the town of Somerset, there was some discussion about the payment that the town of Somerset applies a charge for if you have insurance. And it rolls right off the insurance as a bill for the fire department to attend your structural fire. They have, the town has that, and that goes to fund the district. It's not a burden to the homeowner. It's already governed by the insurance. They said they only had like 5 instances where they were billed out last year for that. However, it was discussed and I look back at the minutes from the previous administration. And they had put forth that they needed to look at this, and so I made sure to follow through with that administration's calling and put it forth for us for discussion. I forwarded to you the current ordinances from the town. Not asking for any movement on this or anything like that at this point in time, but consideration of this board if we should move forward with something like this, or if it can be put on for further discussion, so that we are consistent. We have a joint board that handles our fire, and one municipality treats it a little different than the other municipality. I know we're trying to be consistent with our fire chief language and our ordinances and everything on that regards, and that's why I put this forward to see if we want to stay different from them. This is an opportunity for the fire department to get some income, because when there is a fire, there is additional cost incurred that falls on and is borne by the taxpayers. When they have additional wages, additional fueling and stuff for structure fires, and this is one little bit that's paid for by insurance companies that could help to offset it. It's not a ton of money, but $1,000 could go a long way. Some of them are $500, and you know, I don't know what your thoughts are on this, but I wanted to at least put this out here for discussion, to see if this board wants to move forward with it, and if it will, we can always put it out later on to see what kind of action to take forward.
So as I read this, there's a lot of variable charges in here. I mean, this really, this would hinder homeowners if we put all of these variable charges in here. Man hours are charged in 1/2 hour increments, like costs will include food, refreshments, like this just is a little much. Now, we're talking about a flat fee, you're just saying $500 flat fee, that's different than all of this.
Yeah, and
So,
quite frankly, I've had a conversation with a couple of the town of Somerset, and they're willing to relook at their ordinance and get
Oh, they
something
okay,
to mimic, so that we can both put something forward. However, that would be something we could talk about at a joint session too. When you get a couple people or a couple different trustees from the town and from the village that might say, this is what's gonna make sense for both of us.
Okay.
If you wanna go down that road, you know, but I totally agree with you. I'm not saying we adopt theirs.
okay.
I'm saying that's what they have.
There's just a lot in here that is overwhelming to a homeowner. As a homeowner myself,
Well, this doesn't go on the homeowner's cost, it goes on the insurance.
I think your insurance only covers up to $1,000 of it, and then if they go over that, and in the here, they actually put a lien on your house in this one. And that's really scary.
Well, they could.
I mean,
Looking at their ordinance, it breaks it down to special calls, and 1881 is special calls, but then it goes down to 1884. That talks about the cost of fire calls. So what we're talking about here are just the special calls, right? Or are we talking about all structure fires?
Structure.
it says fire protection
Yeah.
charges.
Special calls, you know, I mean, it kind of limits the special calls at different,
Yeah, those are different.
yeah, it's a difference on it, so.
I mean, I could see like repeated false alarms, or, you know, you got a hazmat spill, like some of those would require,
That's an ordinance.
yeah.
Mhm.
The standard structure fires, medical emergency, first time access, I mean, we want to be there for the community for those basic things, but when you don't have extraordinary extended calls, like maybe, but there's a lot of variables on this one.
See, currently, there's nothing, I mean, for the
Well,
village.
She said, what do you have, what you said that you,
Well, that's for repeated false alarms.
yep, we have some ordinances on that.
Yeah, exactly. Or the cost for hazmat spills,
Okay, we do have some of those, okay.
but not just for a structure fire.
Right.
So, but if this is something insurance companies pay on a regular basis to municipalities, then we should definitely look at it.
A flat fee,
Mhm.
for sure, not a variable
Right.
of any kind.
Okay,
But I like having the teeth in the special calls where it's like, if you are responsible for some of this stuff by gross neglect, like you should pay.
Yes, we'd have to prove that it was gross neglect though, so then that might cost us money to get down that path.
this is why we have you sit at this meeting. Is this common in some other municipalities of villages?
Yes,
Okay,
yeah, most places try to recoup through the insurance, the cost. Now, it varies in terms of how they do that, how they assess their costs. And then they also typically have something in there that it's not mandatory, or there's forgiveness if people don't have it.
right. So I'm guessing you might have some, what possible, maybe other ordinances from villages that might be, fit our.
Yeah, I think you wanna be consistent with.
Well, I don't know if I wanna do all those.
In,
Well,
Would
if
we-
they,
can
if
we-
they're willing to adopt,
Change.
an equal thing, kind of like what we had with the village, chief language and that everything was the same, because we had two separate ordinances that had two separate hierarchy structures for our fire department, and we come together and got one and put it forward, so now we're together, and maybe that might be something that town is willing to adopt, and we could look at in our joint meeting going forward if we wanted to put some work towards it. I'm just saying that that's something that we should do.
Public safety, is that something you guys wanna take on?
What?
Changing this ordinance?
I would bring it up at your joint meetings.
I think we start with the joint meeting. And then we figure out if it's the fire board meeting or someone that, the fire board that works at it, but. Or determine who it goes to after that joint meeting.
I was gonna say joint fire commission would probably be the ones to look at
That's
it.
the one I think we should get it.
Sounds
I
good.
think the biggest question that Jessica probably has is how are the administration of this? Is
Right.
how are we gonna billing?
So
The
we-
billing and all that, how are you gonna know how and what to do? So that would be an administration.
Right, and so
Task that we need to make sure we get.
talking to fire chief notifies the clerks if there's been a structure fire, and the clerk would assess out for it, and once they've received payment of it, then they would forward it to the, that's the way Jerry does it, minus 10%, of course.
So we can put this on the next joint
Joint meeting.
meeting as well as the fire.
You're so
Joint fire
good.
meeting.
Yeah,
I mean, is that,
I mean, this was just a discussion for tonight. so-
right,
Yeah, I would think put it on the two agenda, you know.
I have no problem with that. I just wanted to put it out there because, like I said, I'm trying to take care of some of the old administrative business, so.
Get her cleaned up.
So I'll reach out to, Doug and see if, because he's chairman of the fire commission. And, I'll have him, see if he can get something together for, consistent ordinance between the two municipalities to, get something forward on that, right?
That makes sense.
Okay. Good thought. Discussion possible, next item is discussion possible approval committee of a whole in April. I committed to kind of having committee of the whole meetings quarterly, and I wanted to just put this out. I know we had some time off in March from our meetings. Do we want to have a committee of the whole meeting? Or in April, or do you want to go back to committees meetings for that? What's the pleasure? I mean, if we want to have a committee of the whole, I'm perfectly fine doing that. It's just to kind of limit,
I think with the
our meetings. Pardon?
Well, the elections are.
elections, right?
Prefer committee as a whole meeting.
In April though, or would you like to wait till May?
That's what I'm saying.
I'd wait till May, April, with the election and everything.
I'd wait till May.
I would
with the
too.
election.
And
I
I'm perfectly
have
fine with that.
limited availability.
Okay, so if,
Would we have more meetings if we don't have a committee of a whole
You don't
meeting?
have to go to them.
But I mean, the other gals could run it too, right? But there would be less meetings though, overall.
It would be one meeting instead of all of our individual
Correct.
meetings.
But I know public safety has issues that have been tabled that we need to.
We do need to get
Really
them
long
done.
time.
Yeah.
but it doesn't mean we can't act on them as a full committee.
Well, that's
And it
true.
would probably speed up the meeting in April too.
Yeah. Probably would speed up the meeting.
I mean, I'm perfectly fine calling it or letting it go until May. You know, so whatever you guys wanna do as a board, I'm willing to work with you on it, you know, if you wanted. I just said, I'm gonna have quarterly committee of the whole meetings, that was my commitment to try to cut down on a lot of the meetings and for us to get together as a whole and work through things, so I'm perfectly fine with calling it, and if we do, we can set it. What's the pleasure?
I like one meeting over 5, but
So first week
Right.
of April,
I would agree, the committee as a whole meeting.
is that the first week of April then?
April first,
No, I'm talking about fifth through the tenth.
the 7th is the election.
Is the election.
Well, it doesn't have to be on Tuesday, though, does it? Could it be on Wednesday?
I have a lot of election work after the election.
Let's do April Fool's Day, seems fitting.
It's still in-person absentee voting.
the 9th
I'm fine with,
or the 13th, maybe.
Good with any of those days.
the following week is bad for me. I'll be in Chicago that week.
No.
I'm looking the week of April 5th through the 10th, if you guys can make one of those days work.
But no, we've got to,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm unavailable that week. And the hall is kind of unavailable. Because we have to rearrange everything to get the election set up.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Week of the 13th. You're out.
I'm gonna be in Chicago that week, yeah.
Why can't we do it?
The week of the 20th.
Well, then we're running right up into, the
So we're
board meeting.
doing May then, or what?
21st is the board meeting. I'm fine with going to May if you guys
Yeah.
want.
You don't wanna do May or what?
Well, you guys got stuff you need to deal with?
Well, it's not like
So
we're
we
not
should
gonna
just
have,
do
we're
that,
still
so-
having our meetings.
Just do everything at the meeting? Okay, I'm fine.
Well, we can still have our meetings, correct? That's
Yeah.
that's my understanding. We'll do it in May's
Yeah,
meetings.
quite a bit of May, but you guys don't need me.
Yeah. Well, absolutely we do. But it's important.
I'll be in the British Virgin Island from like the 6th through the 15th.
He's had money managed, you know.
Is it, why can't we do it the first week?
It's the elections.
It could be.
April 1st or 2nd is what you're
Is it
thinking?
bad because you have in person on 6th?
First or second?
No, we're setting up the village hall for the
On the
election
6th.
on Tuesday.
And then on the Wednesday following, the village is not available.
Correct,
And the Thursday, the night, the village is not available.
correct.
Well, Thursday, the second? Why can't we do it first or second?
You've got plan and finance. Plan, for sure.
Planning commission.
Yeah,
Planning commission
plan
on
would
the
be.
second, yeah, and then we have personnel and finance on the second too, but if we did.
If you-
the whole-
We can't do the 1st.
Huh?
First doesn't work either. April Fools.
Planning commission?
The first Thursday. What is that date?
The second.
That's the second.
If you guys wanna do it the week of is second week, you know,
So you mean
13, I'm fine with that, I just will be remote, that's all.
no.
Yeah, 13 will work then.
I'm fine, just as long as.
Can't be back on.
Caleb, if you can run, you know, the committee, well, I'll be here, but I'll just be
I'm on
remote.
board.
Huh?
If he makes it through the election.
Yeah.
Well, you'll still be on the board on the 13th.
Yeah, the swearing in is.
May.
That's what I'm saying, you'll still be there.
You ain't off that easily.
Perfect.
All right, so the
13th.
15th, oh, the 13th, all right.
Okay,
Want to do it 13th or 14th? I've got Monday, the 13th?
I don't care.
The 13th works just fine.
13th works.
So what
We
time?
have, we have any conflicts on the 13th?
I don't have my
April
balance
13th?
past elections. I'll let you know though.
6 o'clock or nothing?
I don't think anything on that Monday.
Well, see, cause it's open on the April 14th, that's why I was something, what's written there on the 13th, I can't even read it.
Done way soccer game in Richmond.
Public safety is actually the 13th, so
So if you do it on the 13th or 14th, we're gonna do it on 13th,
Well, if we do the community at home,
then it's on public safety, and we'll make sure we have everything taken care of then on that. Okay,
Okay,
April 13th.
make a motion. I'll make a motion to have a committee of a whole meeting.
Well, I'll just call, as the president, I'll just call committee of the
Okay, you have
whole.
possible approval.
Yeah, well, this is for discussion, but I think that's what we're saying, so we're all in agreement on April 13th, and, then I'll call committee of the whole meeting on April 13th for discuss all matters be brought forth from the committees on that day.
6 P.M.
Yes,
Are you're still gonna have the committee meetings?
no.
Okay, right.
everything will be, considered and possible, recommended for April, 6 P.M. or you want to do 5:30?
Doesn't matter.
6 is good.
6 P.M. Okay. Next item on the agenda is discussion, possible approval, Weld Riley invoices.
Was there a meeting?
Did you guys?
Caleb and I had a meeting down at Weld Riley, and we managed to come to an agreement to split the cost. So I'll make a motion to approve half of the billing amount for $898.50 for the bills for well.
Second.
Motion made, seconded to approve $898.50 for Well Riley bills. Any discussion?
Good job, boys.
Thank God it's over.
Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Good job.
Next item on the agenda, I'd like to make a motion to convene the closed session as per Wisconsin statutes 19.85 sub 1 sub E, deliberating and negotiating specific public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require closed session. Purchase agreement with Dennis Newman. Roll call. You need a second?
Second.
Okay. Motion made, seconded, roll call, Chris Dubak. Thorne.
Aye.
Crone.
Aye.
Marino. Aye. Word.
Aye.
Stewart.
Aye.
Donnie, aye. Thanks, everybody, for coming down
Thanks,
tonight.
everyone.
We are officially adjourned into a closed session. We appreciate your time and coming down for everything.
I got a question for you.